Ashutosh, now after this visit, there will be a certain section that will now push for elections. Manipur at the moment is under the presidential rule.
Aishwarya, honestly to tell you, ever since that violence started, the first thing that people were demanding from both the sides was the president rule. That let center take charge. Eventually, there was anger against the Biren Singh then government, most of the people, because there was anticipation that the state government failed, and because of the failure and also the handling by the center, somewhere there was mishandling, and because of that situation escalated in such a way that now it's been 2 years, 4 months. However, the violence has stopped, but again, the gap between two communities, the vulnerability, the fear, and the apprehensions in the minds, that takes a lot of time. Particularly if we talk about the people, the Meiteis are not able to travel in Churachandpur in the hilly areas. The people in the hilly areas are not able to travel to Imphal because there is a fear that continues. However, there is no violence, no bunkers, no armed men anymore. But what makes it important that election perhaps will not be a priority for any of the sides, be it the Meitei or the Kukis or the Zomis, because elections is just a mathematical game. So if you dissolve, there is re-elections or the formation of the government. So this all can be handled by the magic number. What Manipur requires is actually the healing touch. And at least what I remember so far in all my visits to Manipur, never heard about any individual talking about that there is a reformation of government that is required. Unless and until you bridge the gap, bring the people together, restore the absolute normalcy, only one can think about holding the election, because the people will only wanting the president rule here.
Right, Ashutosh. My colleague Ashutosh bringing perspective and also saying at the moment that, what people require. Ashutosh, one of the other things that a lot of people at the moment looking at, life has been very difficult, still is very difficult in Manipur. The economic boost, that is something that all these states, the seven sisters, they actually need.
Economic push, infrastructure push, and Manipur, if you remember, even before the conflict, there have been a different kind of conflict. Often, almost every year, couple of years, we hear about economic blockade being imposed. So those have been different issues. Also, the militancy. Now we have the Sioux agreement with those armed groups. The Sioux agreement was signed in. There was, opposition from the Meitei side, from the Valley people, that we need to suspend the Sioux agreements with the government. But all these actions were taken by the due consideration. Remember, there were multiple round of dialogues with the officials from the Home Ministry in Delhi and in different places. The government sent Ajay Bhalla as a governor of Manipur, and things started coming back to normalcy when it comes to law and order. Infrastructure push essentially required not only for the valley but also for the people of hilly areas. And if I could tell you that Aizawl being 300 to 400 kilometers, the people who are not able to take, even during the medical emergency, a flight from Imphal traveling all the way to capital Aizawl of Mizoram, that takes around 12 to 13 hours, and then they take flight for even the medical. So they eventually lose the golden hour. So when you have these kind of situation and a crisis here, subsequently when it comes to infrastructure, you have a better infrastructure that will also give you employment. Here in Churachandpur, or we talk about Kangpokpi or in Senapati, which is dominated by the Nagas, the Zomis, the Kuki. So eventually there is no source of income. So they are in the construction work, a very limited number of the government job. The people who are also, if you remember, during the agitation, during the boiling period, the people were in the hilly areas were also demanding a separate administration, because now the apprehension continues is that so long the administration finances, the funding remains under the control of the people from the valley, eventually the development and infrastructure of the hills will be ignored. And since we see the president rule imposed, there have been more and more dialogues. We see the people from the communities were called to Delhi where the officials met them. There were dialogues also from the Meitei communities. So all these dialogues that have been initiated in a two-way. One, to give a healing touch. Another, to ensure violence doesn't take place anymore. Forget about it, because it was spread pan state of Manipur. Third, to ensure smooth access transportation of the essentials, the supply line, which has now been restored. So at multiple stages, multiple steps were taken, and which is now eventually delivering. But when it comes to bridging the gap of the people, those two people that I've seen living in brotherhood in the areas where they have been living in brotherhood, going in the same school, eating together, playing together, have now become an enemy. And now there is even threat that that persists, that they're not able to travel in each other's area because, and until and unless you restore that absolutely normal, clear out the apprehension that perhaps one administration, one government that will work for all, there is no separation is required. Eventually, all is done will still be a far, fresh dream. So for now, what I see here that government's first priority at the moment is to ensure uh, the gap is bridged between the people, along with the infrastructure that will also create many opportunities, providing them education infrastructure, healthcare infrastructure, road infrastructure, employment at the. So all these steps that have been taken over this period of time is now what I see is being delivered in Manipur.
Right, Ashutosh, as you were speaking, we have seen how there are gaps that have come in between the people. So restoration of faith, that is something that the government should look at, bringing together people, making sure that people are able to sit on a table, are able to talk. That should be the focus. We have seen how the Ministry of Home Affairs also has made sure that both the people sit on a table, they have talks, they actually look at doing what next. A middle ground, that's something that the government should be looking at, isn't it, Ashutosh?
Absolutely, absolutely. And when Prime Minister meeting the IDPs, the internally displaced people, that is also giving a healing touch to the people. Now, if I tell you in Churachandpur, hundreds of the Meiteis were living, the conflict triggered in May 2023. And within, the couple of days, their houses were burned, many people were killed, and all these Meiteis were forced to flee from the hill to the valley. And where to go? Many people, those who have their relatives in different cities, in other cities, they left. But what about the rest of the people? The majority of those displaced were placed in school, in dharamshalas, in a relief camp, and you know the situation of how these relief camps